Hey everybody, welcome to a Tatter-a-Fact at the Girls Inc. studio live in Las Vegas, and we're just gonna get right to it.
Now where they actually pretty much got the people are paying tax on 100% of their tips.
Okay.
So now it's all out. It's all technology.
It's not like it used to be.
Not like it used to be.
No,
Yeah.
those were the good old days.
But I
Mark.
always claimed all my tips because I
Yeah.
wanted to buy a house and I
Right.
wanted to show that I made income. You know, to be successful, you have to make money.
Yes, and that's probably a common mistake people make, and they don't even realize how that can come in and bite you in the butt, right? Like you're not claiming all your tips, or us permanent makeup artists. You know, I mean, a big percentage of probably what a lot of PMU artists get paid are paid in cash.
Cash, yeah.
And there's probably some people out there only claiming what's coming in a check or credit card, what's traceable. You know, a lot do claim their cash. But those that are only not claiming their cash or not claiming enough, that can disqualify you from buying a home.
Yeah, when you do buy a house, you got to pay the PMI because you're
right.
You're more of a risk.
Right.
So you're showing high risk, so they charge you more. They charge you a higher interest rate. They charge you PMI fees.
Exactly.
Whereas if you show a good income, they let you go on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. And that's one thing that you did for me is you completely changed my attitude towards taxes and paying in.
Yeah, you got to claim all your income, but claim all your expenses.
Yeah, well, right. You know, and I was uneducated. You know, until I met you, I didn't have a tax guy. My first tax guy or my couple before you didn't talk to me the way you talked to me.
I think the misconception, Monica, and I'm wondering if you agree, that there is a lot of artists in the industry that want their pigments, they want them so damn strong and they want them to last forever. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think LI Pigments does recognize this. If anything, any pigment, no matter how good it is, how stable it is, sits in facial skin long enough, there is that potential of it shifting color.
100%.
100%. So we want our pigments to last a reasonable amount of time because we don't want to have to keep re-tattooing the same area over and over and over because that can cause scar tissue. But we don't want them to last too long to the point where it's just sitting in facial skin way too long, and now that color can start to degrade or turn into a fugitive color. We want them to slowly fade out. I think, brow pigments lasting 1.5 to 2.5 years is an appropriate time.
Yes, 100%, or even less, now. So I know that, your technique is very different to mine. My technique is very, obviously it's a very light. I'm very light-handed with all my techniques, with hair strokes as well as powder. And, my clients, and not just my clients, but mainly me, and because of that, obviously my clients, is that I don't want my brows to last a long time. I don't want them lasting beyond a 1.5 years.
Right.
I want them to fade away after a year, 1.5 years, and my clients can come back and they have options. It's almost then faded down to 20%. There's barely any pigment by that stage.
Right.
After most of my clients come back after about 12 months to 18 months. And there's about 20-30% of pigment. Sometimes there's no pigment there at all. So it's like a brand new canvas. And because my hand is such a light hand, when I tattoo, you see, I don't mush up the skin. I don't think I cause, obviously every time you tattoo, you cause trauma. Of course, we know that. But because I'm super light-handed, I don't think I cause too much trauma. So I just prefer that because my clients then have options. So when they come back to me after 12 months, 18 months, they can choose a different technique. They can choose a different shape. They can choose a different color. They can choose everything else. And, I'm not sure about America, but in Ireland, the clients definitely prefer that way. They want to have that open option for later on, so that they can change technique, they can change everything. Trend changes, all the time.
Yeah.
So I just prefer, and I think Europe, compared to say America, I think Europeans want them so much lighter and so much softer, and they don't mind coming back after 18 months.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier about some attorneys will dabble in this and dabble in this, and they'll take on whatever comes to them. And this was an attorney, obviously, that had really good, strong ethics.
Exactly.
And referred me to the right place.
Which is one of those red flags that as your audience is going out and looking for advisors of any capacity, I was presenting for a while back at the law school I attended about how to start your own law firm and how to go out and get clients and things like that. And this guy that I went to school with handed me his business card. And on the front of the business card was all his contact information. On the back of the business card was literally every single potential practice area on planet Earth listed.
that he did.
That he did. And I looked at him and I said, do you do all of this, including like maritime law?
Yeah.
Do you know where we
right,
live? Like
right.
we're in Las Vegas. There's no, mineral rights, the whole thing. And he was like, oh yeah, and I went, okay, thank you for good luck to you and your malpractice actions that are going to be.
Yeah. So what I would want to tell my listeners, which are mostly PMU artists, right, is it would be the same as if you are permanent makeup artist that does nothing but powder brow, the powder brow technique, but you have a client that walks in one day and she wants hair strokes. And you say, yes, that's not your forte, right? You do powder brows. So, so it's sort of the same thing. So I guess that's the first advice we would give listeners if they're looking for a lawyer is they want to pair themselves with a lawyer that specializes in their type of business. Right. And if you see a lawyer that says, I do this, if I do boobs, lips, butts, ankles, the whole body, hair transplant.
I'll do your shoulder replacement too.
Hair transplant and all that. And by the way, I also, can test your eyesight.
Better one or better two.
Then run. You want a lawyer that specializes in what you're
and you're a
needing.
good example of somebody who's recognized that you have. So you've got an attorney that only handles your trademark work, and you've got an attorney who, and employment law, as an example, does fall under kind of general business law, and we know enough to be dangerous. But as something gets too complicated, we will enlist the help of I think I might know the lawyer you're talking about. We'll enlist the help of that employment lawyer,
right? Because
we also know, even though we do practice broadly in business, we also know where our boundaries are. And we're similarly honest with clients to say, this is
not in my wheelhouse.
This is not in my wheelhouse. We can still serve as your point of contact. We're not just going to dump you off on somebody unless it's appropriate. But we'll still stay involved and make sure that we can quarterback this so you get the right advice you need from an attorney that we have vetted, instead of just sending you out in the world and saying, good luck.
We're telling them it all goes back to proper depth and saturation. But they're being taught light-handed, shallow, light saturation, barely putting anything in there because they don't want to see blood. They don't want to cause trauma, and my whole, maybe I'm a little old school and I'm interested to hear your perspective, but I feel, you tattoo anything, face, eyeliners, I don't care. There's going to be trauma. There's going to be blood for some people. There's going to be redness, swelling for some people, not all. For me, it's about the client wants it to last. They want long lasting, not too long, because if it lasts too long, then that gives time for the pigment to start turning gray or turning, weird colors, which it will if things sit for years and years and years in the skin. But I think 2 or 3 years is a reasonable amount of time for someone.
Definitely. I think I'm so glad you asked me this question, because I feel like a lot of the students that I teach I'm actually helping them to get really good retention, and they're completely doing what you said, and which is not saturating enough.
Right.
And I think the reason being, and I think I understand, I know why, is because if you go on Instagram, everything is supposed to be so aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
And
the Instabrow. Is that what we call it? The Instabrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm talking about, they're worried, and this is the main thing that comes up over and over again in my masterclasses, but I'm so worried that people might not have it done because it looks too dark, or, or it doesn't look, or you can't see like the pixels as well. And I'm like, okay, first of all, let's dissect these two topics here. Pixels. Let's talk about this. Pixels, yes, they look great when this is what we want to form, but pixels realistically are not going to really be there when they come back for their touch-up.
Thank you, Clarissa. I'm so glad that
what is this all about?
An artist like you, who's so fucking talented, is being so honest and real about
What
this.
is it all
Carissa, this is Carissa's favourite topic. She
It's
talks
my
about this-
favorite topic too.
What
and
is it all about?
Mike,
I just
Mike,
think the whole industry is being bamboozled. You know,
They're
all
not
these new
being-
technicians are
and
being
a client doesn't
bamboozled
even-
about pixels.
The client doesn't even fucking know what a pixel is. All they want to know is want to get their brows done. They want to leave. You're
Yeah.
creating little
Yeah.
fine details.
They're creating
honestly
it for
sorry.
likes on Instagram and trying to create these Instagram bows.
It's to do with, at the moment, it's all to do with the ASMR, the, oh,
It
look
looks
at the
aesthetically
pixels,
pleasing in
look
the
at the pixels
pictures.
getting made. Okay, your pore, the pore is more than likely, actually it is bigger, most probably than that tiny, minuscule dot, right? So, and those dots, yes, they're going to create a little bit of, they're going to help create some spacing in between to maybe not oversaturate, but these dots that people are spending so long on, like you see some of these, you see a lot of like, I call it sombre brows, where it's like dark on the base and then really light on the top,
Yeah.
really pixelated. When I see them healed, I literally, I show them to you, don't I? And I
all
said,
the time.
if my client paid me, you know, £550 they pay for my brows, if they had this as healed work, they would say, can I have a refund? Because there is nothing there.
Exactly.
You're looking at 20%, 30% retention.
Yeah.
And because what they're doing is they're saturating, I would say they're layering maybe 2 passes. I'd say 1 or 2 passes most probably max they're doing. And they're doing it so light, they're most probably just hitting, I mean, God knows even if they're hitting the upper layer of the dermis, they're most probably still so superficial. And they're literally just spraying, you know, like spray, don't even touch, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and then the pictures straight away look, oh, they look amazing. Yeah, of course they don't look like they've been tattooed because you haven't even touched them. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You haven't even saturated them. So of course they're going to look beautiful, but they're going to look beautiful instantly. But remember, you're not taking into consideration that you're going to lose pigment. So then you're going to lose the pigment, and these dots aren't even going to be there anyway because everything flares out and looks smooth.
Do we not, when we're out and about, want to be recognized by our clients? Because same thing, I'll be in Trader Joe's or, you know, Target or somewhere, and I'll see clients and I just like do a beeline. I duck behind clothes. I run. I get out of the line.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to see my clients in public, and I don't really know why.
I think we want to disassociate from work, want to have a life outside of tattooing.
Yeah, maybe, right?
I just, honest to God, I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, I told my husband, run the other direction. I just, you know, I don't want to talk about work, you know?
Yeah. And it's not that we don't like our clients.
Yeah.
It's just, there's something about running into your clients.
They have their
outside of-
time, and then we need our time, our family time, and our me time. And I don't want to talk about eyebrows or how they faded and when can I see you again? And no,
it's important. And I think the longer you're in this industry, or the longer you're in business, own a company, the longer, you know, older you get, I think you realize like how important family time, time with friend, time outside of work, downtime, relaxed time, fun.
Hence your 4-wheelers.
Yeah, my 4-wheelers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really, really important.
Yeah.
I think it allows you to decompress, and it kind of fuels you for, you know, for the next, you know, big project or challenge or stressful day. So,
Well, you know, I'm sure in the beginning, especially when we were in the beginning of our careers, we did everything, and we talked at 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night to our clients. They dictated what we felt obligated to be a part of. So I work normal business hours. When when I'm off the clock at work, I don't answer my phone calls. I really just feel like they almost take advantage of us sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just want to have a little bit more just me time, alone time. I don't want to get resentful at my clients because they're like messaging me at 2 a.m. or, you know, over stupid stuff, things that we've already talked about.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it just gets so aggravating when they don't take our time into consideration.
Yep.
And if we did this to them, the tables were turned and we were messaging them at 2 o'clock in the morning to confirm their appointments, they'd be irate.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember those days. Those days don't sometimes those days seem like light years ago.
Yeah.
And sometimes they only seem like, you know, yesterday. But I can absolutely remember when I booked all my own appointments. I returned all the calls myself. It was just me in 100 square foot room, you know, and I had a massive clientele. I was seeing clients, you know, 6 days a week, 10, 12-hour days, easily 10, 12-hour days. And to the point, Mary, where, you know, Kat and I got married. It wasn't, now everybody knows it wasn't like a legal marriage, but we went to Hawaii and we got married, and I felt so obligated and tied to my clientele that even on our week, our wedding week in Hawaii, I would get up like an hour and a half before Cat, call all my clients, book them, confirm their appointments, because I was so afraid if I missed even a couple of days of doing that, like I'd lose my clientele or they'd be upset. I'd lose appointments. So, now, I got a front desk, that does all that. But
Yeah.
I think everybody starts out doing their own books, their own bookings, their own callbacks, their own everything. You're a one-man show. And I think that's kind of the way it probably should be. That's how you learn your business inside out, right?
Without a doubt. I'm just me and my daughter. I don't have a big, huge staff or anything. And I was old school up until 2 years ago. I went to Vigara. I have a book every year of my clientele. I just feel like what we've learned as we grew as artists and as trainers, I carry this over into my trainings to my students and let them know, don't let them walk all over you, because they'll just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Set boundaries, stay confident, and let them know this is my time frame. I'll respond to phone calls and emails and messages, and I just feel like people, a lot of my students, they're working till midnight. I'm like, are you crazy? They're working till midnight.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I have done that in the past, and every now and then, I will still work until the wee hours, but, on projects and, collaboration, other things, not, client callbacks. But I remember someone early in my career telling me it's not the work, like the actual procedures and the craft itself that will burn you out. It's client management. If you don't get that under control and manage your clientele, early on, and have boundaries, rules, guidelines,
Exactly.
then they're going to burn you out. Yeah. And there was absolute truth into that, because I didn't set boundaries. I didn't set guidelines. They could call me on my personal cell phone. I didn't have a business phone back then. I just had my cell phone, and all my friends, family, and clients had the same number.
Yeah.
So it's like you couldn't get away from your clients, when
I see these statements all the time, like organics aged to gray and blue, iron oxides aged to red and orange. Not all the time, not all the time. I don't like those blanket statements. But if an organic is going to shift color over time, it's going to shift to those grays. So the way my mind works, if I've got a canvas, a skin type that's going to heal and shift color to gray over time, because that's what that particular skin's going to do, why would I put an organic on there that has the propensity to shift or age to a gray? So, right, it's almost like a double whammy, right? It's like I'm not even giving that brow a chance to stay out of the gray zone. So I will, on those skin types, I do like the iron oxides, because if an iron oxide is going to shift over time, they are going to shift typically to the warmer tones. But and so that's just the way my mind works. I'm super analytical, and I just think all these things out. I would rather have a pigment that's going to shift to a warmer tone on a skin that has a propensity to shift to gray. Do you see what I mean? It makes more sense to me. Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think that where my mind goes is when I'm thinking about brow colors and how they're mixed and the color components, it's almost always yellow, red, and black to make a brow color in almost all of them. And the organics, like Perma Blend or like the loaded lines, even though they don't fade gray, they have a tendency to hold on to the black part of the brown longer than the yellow and the red. And on some clients, that's okay. Like when I need a cooler color, that's okay.
Right.
But for almost all of those ruddy clients, if the black is the thing that stays the longest for them, they're gonna look gray or blue.
They're going to look
time
gray or blue. Yeah. And I know the whole industry right now is just high on organics, right? I mean, they're just tripping and loving organics. You know, and we have an LI, you know, we came out with an organic line, but LI's been making organics, you know, for the last 25 years. We also do the iron oxides. So I think I would love to see artists in the industry not just get locked into, you know, one or the other, because as we're talking about right now, there are cases and situations where an organic is going to be a better choice for that particular client, that particular skin type, that particular case. And on the flip side, there are going to be situations where an iron oxide is absolutely the more ideal choice for that particular skin type, that particular situation. So it's being a smart artist, a thinking artist, and not just reaching, you know, for a brand or a particular, you know, type of pigment. It's being a thinking artist and having both type, an iron oxide, so, you know, some iron oxides, some organics, and knowing when to use one or the other, right? So, yeah,
I agree.
I think if artists could get there, they would see less grays, they would see less of, you know, the flawed colors, as we call them, and see more true results. It's interesting, Chris, and I don't know if I even thought about it this way, but you know, when it comes to tattooing eyebrows, there's all kinds of shapes. You know, it's got to be symmetrical. You got to nail the arch, you know, the bulbs. I mean, you think of shape.
Correct.
With eyebrows or eyeliner. But I don't know necessarily if people think how important shape and mapping and the pre-draw is for scalp. I'm wondering if a lot of people think, well, it's just a scalp. There's no mapping or shape. You just...
Oh, there is.
There is, right?
Yeah.
So as an SMP guy, and you're super artistic. I mean, you were a barber and you had a really good aesthetic eye. You created all these designs and shapes.
Correct.
So you have to decide how low on the forehead, how far back on the temples.
Correct.
All that stuff.
We basically teach people like where to, like, using the eyebrows, where their side peripherals should start, or using fingers to put at the bridge of the nose where their hairline should start.
Okay.
You know, basically just to get them to understand where it's supposed to be. And as they do it, it gets easier and easier.
It gets easier and easier.
Correct.
And you said there's two different styles, like the barbershop
edge up, which is what I have. And then, you know, there's honestly thousands of hairlines, but the two main ones are the barbershop edge up or the natural hairlines. But there is receding, like people, like the older you are, the more receding, looks more natural.
It looks more natural,
or softer, you know, lighter in certain areas.
So the barbershop edge up, that's what you have.
Yes.
And just for anybody that doesn't know, that's a little bit more of defining line, like
Correct.
a crisper, sharper, more defining hairline.
Yeah, which you can't do this type of hairline on everybody. Like,
No.
I know SMP artists that will put this hairline on everybody. It can be like, for example, a judge, a 100-year-old white guy, and they'll give him a barbershop edge up, and you just can't do that.
It's not going to look natural.
Correct.
So on a guy like that, you're going to want to do like something super soft,
receded. This is my style. This is what I love. You know, I love my hairline.
So who did your head?
So I got it done by the gentleman from my area. He started it.
Yeah.
And then I, you know, just traveled different places. I kind of fell into what a lot of people fall into, which is you get the first session, it looks amazing. And you're like, oh, this looks good. And then you get the second one, you're like, oh, wow, it looks better. Third one, it looks better. And then you want more and more and more. So I kind of fell into it. But the last gentleman who did my SMP was a great friend of mine, Jesse Lima, which he is the first barber I've ever seen doing scalp micropigmentation, which he brung my hairline down and adjusted it exactly to where it should have been.
Okay.
But he had to work over top of a lot of ink.
So let's talk about like aging. I think that's a lot of people wonder how it ages, because you guys are using carbon, like black carbons, right?
Correct. Yes.
So how does it age? Does it eventually like fade out like permanent makeup does, and you have to redo it in a few years, or is this something that will last like a lot of years, like a long time, or?
So it lightens up over time, and we usually recommend to get a touch up approximately every 3 to 10 years.
Okay.
But it does lighten up over time. Yeah.
Okay.
If it's not so dark.
So you think it's important for beginners starting out learning PMU to work with mineral pigments? Can you explain why you feel that way?
Absolutely. And in our classes, we predominantly are teaching our beginner students. That's what we are aiming to teach, is beginners. And so what I have learned through that process is that as a beginner, you are not usually very secure with yourself about eyebrow mapping right off the bat. That's just not something that is going to come to you right away. And so working with carbon is very dangerous for someone who is not secure with eyebrow shaping. They're not very confident with eyebrow mapping, and they can't get both of the brows even right away. And for me, that didn't happen for me. Starting out with PMU, I didn't get perfectly symmetrical brows until 2-3 years in. So that says a lot, right? And then when you're using carbon pigments as a beginner, depth, you can really see inconsistent depth right away. If we just accidentally go too deep with the needle, you can see a dot of where the needle entered into the skin, and then the pigment pulled right into that spot. So you can see inconsistencies with your healed results. You get dottiness, unevenness, patchiness. And if the mapping was not correct, maybe they're too thick, we really can't do anything about it after the 2 months after they heal. It is kind of set in stone. So even as a trainer, when just even thinking about it, thinking about how my beginners are going to bring these photos back to me, as in they need my help, they need my support, they did something that they didn't know this was going to happen and stuff. And just seeing all that, I'm just like, oh my goodness, why? Just start out with iron oxide, start out with the LI pigments, and you bypass all these mistakes right away. And one of it is that if we're inconsistent in depth, it doesn't show as much with LI pigments.
Right.
You're not going to see the patchiness and unevenness as much. You will see it sometimes, but not as much. The second thing is it fades. So there were so many times when I first started doing permanent makeup where I got so hung up on one hair stroke that was slightly outside the shape that just kind of pulled the shape in a different way. And then I just stared at it and I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't get this out right away. But then I like lose sleep over it. I'm just like, the client didn't really notice, but I noticed, right? That's how it is sometimes. And so they come back after a month or so, and guess what? With iron oxide inks, it's gone. That piece that I thought I made a mistake on, but I didn't do a second pass over that hair stroke because I knew I didn't like it. And it disappeared. And I just did a second pass over all the ones I did like. So that's the thing about working with iron oxide, is that if you know how to work with it, if you do 2 passes over every single hair stroke on the ones you do like, and if you made a mistake on the one and you just don't really like the angle of it, or it's slightly outside the shape, just don't do a second pass. And most likely it's going to disappear. It's just way easier to work with when it comes to making mistakes, which is the number one thing that our students are scared of, is making a mistake. And when you make a mistake with iron oxide, it is way less of a mistake than it is with carbon.
Yeah, iron oxides are more forgiving. And I think that's one, like, what is a little maybe more beneficial for the iron oxide is they're great for the beginner. Like, I agree with you. I think beginners should start out with an iron oxide, but also the very advanced artist, Aqua and Monica Vani's, Jen Boyd's, all those, made by LI, also are high performance mineral pigments that many super talented and advanced artists are using. So iron oxides, all levels, no matter if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced and super skilled, a really good iron oxide line is going to work really well with you no matter where you are in your skill level. Where an organic, more you got to get through that beginner period. And I agree with you 100%, especially on depth and placement. We've seen some blurred hair strokes, because, they're using organics and they're going too deep, and, it's supposed to be hair strokes, but, they come in for removal, and I'm like, and they're explaining this was supposed to be a hair stroke eyebrow, but it's solid, and you can tell it was organic. I can tell you can tell it was organic, that it actually, the strokes, migrated and blurred, either because they went too deep, or they put strokes on, someone with large pores, really oily and textured, and that type of skin alone will blur a stroke, right? It's like almost impossible to get a super fine, crisp stroke on that oily, textured skin. So, or both. So so thank you for pointing that out.
That's why I feel like even in our classes, we always teach the difference between using an organic and inorganic pigment. We don't say that you have to use this one and this is it. This is the only one you can use, because we want to educate our students on what is the benefits of using this pigment line, which is inorganic, and what is the benefits of using a carbon line, which is this or this type of pigment line.
Right.
And what are the pros and the cons, so that they can make the decisions themselves as well. And later down the road, they can use a carbon line when they feel more confident. And carbon line is really great for cover-ups. If you're doing a cover-up, sometimes inorganic is just not enough to cover up what was underneath.
Right.
So sometimes a carbon line is really needed.
Yeah. And I sometimes I'll pull out an organic when, like, I have skin that's just really resistant. It's just not taking well. It's oily and it's just not accepting pigment well. I'll stop and I'll get something from the loaded line. I'll move over to an organic, and sometimes that's super helpful, right? So, but you're right. You bring up a good point that we need to start, and it starts with like people like you and your generation, educating the young artists and getting them to be thinkers. Like, I feel there are too many people in this industry don't want to think. It's like if you're going to learn how to fix cars, be a mechanic, you have to go to school and learn all these aspects of, the engine and why this and why that. Same with PMU. That's what I want to see for this young generation of artists and for the PMU industry as a whole, to be thinkers and to really understand organics and iron oxides or minerals. There's a lot of doctors out there nowadays that will not sign a client off. They will not write a note. So have you encountered that? And then what advice would you give to a PMU artist that's kind of in that situation? Client calls back, says, you know what, my doctor won't write a note. So will you still work on me?
Yeah. We live in a litigious society, no doubt. So I can see the doctor's perspective, and that what their concern is, they don't want to get sued ultimately. But, you just kind of answered your the first question when you were talking about, gosh, I see something, I don't feel comfortable with it. I see that this is not, anything that's, life-threatening maybe, but it just doesn't feel right. Then pause right there and talk to the client about it. But before that, rewind a little. We all should have ironclad paperwork. The paperwork should be ironclad, and we should have like addendums and clauses. And at the very least, let's say a client comes to me, and no, I don't deal with that often, by the way. But if it did happen, and if I was not comfortable with it, I do deal with it more as an electrologist, because I'm an electrologist and I see a lot of underlying hormonal conditions, never diagnosed, but my trained eye, gosh, it looks like this may be PCOS, which is something that's a very common hormonal condition, but I will not treat the client with electrolysis unless they come back with a doctor's note that just or something proving that they're receiving treatment. And treatment could just be, I don't know, spironolactone or a birth control pill, nothing major. But my treatment won't be efficacious. Like it won't work unless they're getting treated for their condition. So then it falls on me. Gosh, Rose sucks as an electrologist, but no, it's because you're not treating your underlying condition. So I would treat PMU the same way is, gosh, this is something that needs to be seen by a doctor. If they don't want to give you a note, fine, but just go see them, diagnose the condition or whatever it is. If they can at least give you a note stating what that condition is, they're not giving you a green light or anything. They're just saying, yes, this is, sebaceous hyperplasia, whatever it is, acne, cystic acne, whatever it is. And then, then we can go from there. The artist should have a general understanding of the skin. And at that point, if the artist chooses, follow your intuition. We don't have to work on any client we don't want to. But if the client is, gosh, please, I need beautiful brows. I want you. I trust you. I'll sign whatever. Make sure your paperwork is ironclad. Perhaps, have them sign an addendum or something. Consult with your insurance company if you're concerned about that, and say, gosh, will this hold water in the case of any, but again, nothing's going to happen. In a heartbeat, I would do it. But I would proceed really slowly with caution, maybe diluting the pigment, whatever that means. What does proceeding with caution means? It depends on the situation in front of me, but I wouldn't jump in the deep end with that procedure. I would just, go in very lightly, and then we could revisit anything in the future touch up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think most clients, if not all, right, they don't want to do anything unsafe for themselves either. Right. And so, and most of them will have a conversation with their doctor if you tell them, look, I'm a little concerned about this. I'd like you to talk to your doctor. They'll at least have a conversation with their doctor. I've had so many clients that have. And I've had a handful of doctors not write them a note. So the client, came back in. My doctor won't write me a note due to liability reasons, but this is the conversation. This is what they told me it was. I got on this medication. And then I'll say, okay, let's do a little addendum. About, and on the addendum, the name of the client, the date, we write a little thing that they had, what I advised them of. They did talk to their doctor, the conversation between them and their doctor, and they've decided on their own, to move forward. And so, it's just like you said, dotting all your I's, crossing all your T's, and following your gut. If there was something I'm like, what? I am just not like a blood disorder. I mean, something.
Or I have, I don't know, a transplant. I'm on anti-rejection medication.
It's something
really
medical. You're talking, something really medical.
Chemo, cancer. I mean, I will not, unless I definitely for sure,
there's some things
black
you
and
just
white.
Don't.
I need a note before I proceed. You have chemo, your immune system is compromised. They have diabetes. Their healing may be compromised. So there are certain things that we definitely do need a note for.
No, I understand, but I'm like you. I see a lot of someone will post, a picture of a client and say, she has this, and this. Should I work on them? And a lot of people, no, I wouldn't work on her. I wouldn't work on her.
I see that all the time.
And I'm sitting there going, I would totally work on her.
Me too. Totally. Exactly.
So, but I think it's the society you live in. Like you said, we're in a litigious, it's either the, I think as young artists, you're scared. You're nervous. You don't want to
get that.
We have a lot of responsibility, and it's kind of like, I think PMU artists are in the same situation as doctors. Doctors, take that oath, I will do no harm. Same with PMU artists. I think we all
should have an oath.
And I think most of us do. Most are good people.
Innately,
most people
in our
the world
mission
are
statements,
good people. And so we have this desire to do no harm. And we're protective that way. We want to protect the client.
I think as long as we tell the client, listen, I have your best interest at heart. I can charge you $2,000 right now, whatever it is, but I care more about you than your business. Of course, I want your business. I have a business. I'm in business to make money. But at the end of the day, as long as they know that we have their best interest at heart, they will 100% appreciate it.
Sometimes we put our own restrictions. The restrictions and the chains are the ones we place on ourselves, right? Not even what society places on us. I mean, you have to deal with that all on its own. But I think we place the stricter, on our own selves.
I agree. I think
right?
we're hardest on our own selves.
We're hardest on our own selves. And sometimes tell ourselves we can't do it. We're too this, we're too that. And
I try that, but she's so bossy. She
is bossy.
It always changes my mind.
She's bossy.
I'm barely getting a bunch of nicknames too, by the way. But.
I think you just got to follow your heart. And like you always say, Rochelle, stay in the pursuit of happiness. I say that all the time, ending our podcast. I stole that from you.
You can have it because I probably stole it from somebody else.
But it's great, stay in the pursuit of happiness and, just keep going forward. Even if it's baby steps, just keep moving forward, pursuing what makes you happy, and music makes you happy.
It sure does. It's something that's often said. First with Rochelle, like that first gig I did with you guys, with the Home for Spot gig. Right. We're playing, and you've been on stage, so you know how the sound is on stage. And there's rumbling, and there's guitars, and there's monitors, and there's voices, and it's just, it's amazing to me. That's what I love. But all of a sudden, Rochelle leans over to me with her guitar and says, "I love my life." And I just looked at her and I thought, that is the coolest thing. And she was just so in the moment and just looking back at Mike, her husband, and just jamming on her guitar and soloing. It was just such a cool thing. And so that's something that's said often, the three of us. Yeah. And we love our lives. I love my life.
It's great. Well, life's tough, right? Yeah. Life can be really, really
and
hard.
I'm not saying I'm never sad.
No.
But I love my life. I mean, God,
we have a tractor for crying out loud.
Yeah, we have a tractor. So when people don't go in the pursuit with us, we just bury them.
There's a lot of holes on
There's
our
a lot
property.
of holes. Just don't.
Are you happier quadding? Because you're really super happy on quadding or music. If you had to pick one. Oh, I know. That's so mean.
I will say that I do love my music, and I'm so addicted. And I wake them up because my friend Heather here works with me, and we work graveyard, and I will
don't
come
work
up
graveyard.
She doesn't work graveyard, but I'll come up with an idea, and I'm like, Heather, listen to this. What do you think? And she goes, oh, that's really cool. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna send it to Jeanette and Laura. Bing, and they're asleep, and they're like, oh crap, and they're getting these dings from me because I'm excited about just one line that I came up.
Or she'll like, oh, we're doing like a show tomorrow. Tomorrow? What? Who? When? What are we doing?
Well, this whole thing, us sitting here.
That's her. She pushed it.
God damn right, that's Rochelle pushed it.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
and you kept putting me off. I'm like,
I kept thinking, well, it'll just be you three and a little guitar and acoustic.
I didn't even know
and then
this
Rochelle
was
just
going
kept
on.
adding musicians and drum kits and cables and a keyboardist and you got a sound guy outside here and Heather's here. And
We have
I'm
an
like,
audience. You
oh
can't
my
say that,
God.
but
But
we
that's
do.
Rochelle. Rochelle's kind
Rochelle
of like go
pushes.
big or go
But
home.
Jeanette,
She pushes.
Jeanette will be on the road with expose somewhere, and Rochelle will text her like, "Hey, you need to be back."
Yeah, can we finish this song? Do you
I
have
know.
any time to finish this song?
Yeah.
Jeanette's like,
yeah.
I'm in Chicago.
Rochelle's on her own time.
I know, and I apologize. I will apologize.
No,
but
don't, because it's endearing.
And I do. I write on the road. I do because
yeah.
I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I'm out of my house where there's a million things that need to be done.
But when
I write a lot on the road, actually.
Yeah. When she gets overbearing on the group text between
they
the three
just
of us,
delete me
we
or
just,
ignore
no, we just
me.
mute her.
There you go.
But I know when they're muting me because I can see it. I'm like, they're ignoring me.
Thank you, and we will see you next time on the Tatter-a-Fact.